The puppy under the tree. The box was already under the tree when we woke up that morning. Both parents were speaking in a whisper. Who placed this gift? It wasn't tucked away off to the side like an afterthought. It sat centered, placed with care, as if someone had set it with purpose between the bright tree and the edge of the rug. The paper was red, darker than the others. Smooth, uncreased. The bow was tied evenly, the loops identical, the ends cut straight, yet no one in the house remembered putting it there. At first, that didn't feel impossible. Christmas mornings always had a way of blurring who brought what and when. Someone suggested it might have been brought in late, after the lights were turned off. Someone else said maybe it had been delivered and set inside without anyone noticing. So we stood around it longer than we needed to. The living room was half lit by the tree. Its colored bulbs blinked slowly, reflecting off the window glass. Outside, the street lay quiet under a thin layer of fresh snow. No wind, no cars, and oddly, no voices. Thump, thump. The box moved, not a jump, not a shake. Just a small shift, like something inside had adjusted its weight. Someone laughed too quickly and said, "It's probably a puppy." The idea lifted everyone's spirit in an instant. One of the children looked up at a parent and said, "Puppies belong under trees, right, Dad?" The youngest knelt. Fingers slid under the ribbon. The bow loosened easily. The lid lifted without resistance. Inside was a small black dog curled too tightly, its body pressed into the corners as if the box had been made for it. It looked up without fear. The Christmas lights reflected in its eyes and vanished, as if swallowed. Its paws were a bit too large. Its ears sat a little too upright. When it yawned, its mouth opened wider than expected, and there were more teeth than there should have been for a normal puppy. One of the children lifted it from the box. It smelled faintly of smoke. A card slipped down beside it. No handwriting. No glitter, no name. Only 3 words printed neatly. "He's yours now." The parents looked at one another, waiting for someone to claim it. A relative, a neighbor, heck, even Santa himself. Someone who thought this would be funny or sweet or both. Yet no one did. The puppy jumped out of the child's arms and landed on the rug. The wooden floor creaked loudly in a way that didn't match its size. It looked around. It didn't bark. It didn't whine. It didn't shake like other animals did when they were nervous or excited. It sat and watched. Christmas continued. People laughed and sang, trying to forget the strange appearance of the puppy. Wrapping paper was torn to pieces. The pile grew, spreading across the rug. Someone went looking for scissors. Another person searched for batteries. The kitchen filled with the smell of coffee and toast. The puppy followed us from room to room, silent. It didn't chase ribbons or pounce on torn wrapping paper. It didn't scramble toward the door when it opened and the cold slipped in. It watched our faces instead. When people laughed, it watched. When someone raised their voice, it watched. When a child ran too fast through the hallway, it watched until the child slowed down. Like it was judging us for something we couldn't name. At some point, someone tried to pick it up. The puppy didn't resist, but the person's arms tensed the moment they lifted it. It wasn't heavy in the way a big dog was heavy. It was heavy in a way we couldn't describe. The puppy looked calmly into their face until they set it down again. By afternoon, the living room felt warmer, and it didn't come from the heater, nor from the family gathering safely inside. The puppy lay near the tree, eyes half closed, but it never truly slept. Still observing. Someone set out a bowl of water. The puppy drank once, then sat back, attentive. Someone gave it scraps. It ate without chewing much, swallowing carefully, as if tasting wasn't the point. We tried once to search online, to see if someone was missing a puppy. Dog left on doorstep Christmas. Puppy found with note. The results were pranks, rescues, shelters. Nothing that fit this situation. Nothing that matched the card. "He's yours now." The parents told themselves it was a mistake. Someone dropped the wrong box. Someone panicked and abandoned an animal. Someone assumed we would do the right thing. That story was easier than any other idea that crossed our minds. But another story started to form on its own by the end of the day, when the puppy stood up and walked toward the front door. It didn't hesitate. It didn't sniff around like it was curious. It went straight to the door and lay down across the threshold. Body aligned with the seam like it had been trained to fit there, not curled, not resting, just facing outward. Its ears twitched once, then again, as if it was tracking something in the air. Someone joked that it was guarding the house. Another person laughed, relieved that they had a normal explanation again. But the puppy wasn't watching the living room. It was watching the door, and it wasn't guarding the house from people leaving. It was guarding something from getting in. That night, the family went to bed in the usual way, but the usual way felt odd, like something wasn't right. We turned out the lights. We checked the locks. We left the tree glowing, twinkling through the night. In the dark, the puppy did not move from the door. Once, someone came downstairs for water and stopped halfway down the steps. The puppy's outline was visible in the low glow of the tree, unmoving. Its eyes caught the colored lights and held them like flames. The air by the door felt colder than the rest of the room, as if the warmth didn't want to stay there. They backed up quietly and returned upstairs without getting water. Somewhere after midnight, the house changed. There was no sound that announced it. No crash, no howl, just an uneasy shift in pressure. The kind you feel in your ears right before a storm, except the weather outside remained still. The puppy's ears lifted, its body tightened. It growled, low, controlled, not a warning, recognition. The pressure remained for a long time. It pressed against everything within its reach. The tree lights flickered once, then steadied. Someone woke up and sat in bed, listening, waiting, afraid of the unknown. Yet nothing came, nothing knocked, nothing tried the handle. That was worse, because it meant whatever was out there didn't need permission. It was only waiting. By morning, the puppy was larger. Not dramatically. Not enough that anyone could clearly say something was wrong. Just enough that the doorframe looked narrower around it. Just enough that when it stood and stretched, its back brushed the bottom of the handle. Just enough to matter later. Outside, the street was still quiet, too quiet. The snow was there, thin and pale, but there were no birds, no small tracks, no neighbor's car starting, no distant traffic hum. The world looked blank, frozen. The puppy refused to leave the door. We coaxed it with food, with toys, with soft voices. With the back door open, offering it the yard, it didn't move. It didn't blink much either. It kept staring through the door as if it could see the other side. By midday, scorch marks appeared on the floor where its paws rested, faint at first, like discoloration, then darker, as if the wood had been warmed too long. The air around it was hot, and when someone reached down to touch the metal knob, they jerked their hand back, not from sunlight, from the dog. We started to talk about returning it, finding a shelter, calling animal control, doing something. The puppy didn't react to the words, but its growl returned low and steady every time someone took a step toward the door. It wasn't threatening us, it was telling us not to open it. That night, we ate dinner with the living room lights on. Not because we admitted we were afraid, because no one wanted to be the first person to suggest turning them off. The tree stayed lit, the puppy stayed at the door. Outside, the silence remained. The same chilling pressure returned sometime after midnight, heavier this time. The walls seemed to hold their breath. Someone turned over in bed and felt the air move through the room, not as a breeze, but as something passing. Downstairs, the puppy rose to stand. Its fur smoked faintly now, like ash stirred by a draft. Not thick smoke, not obvious. just enough to smell if you were close. Dry heat, burnt air. It stood rigid, head lowered, muscles locked. When it growled, the sound vibrated through the floorboards. A line was being held. Something pressed against the house again, not the door, the space around it. The puppy did not bark. It did not run. It did not attack. It simply stood, as if it was the only thing buying us time before something that doesn't knock arrives. Upstairs, someone sat up in bed and whispered a name, then stopped because names felt unsafe in that silence. Another person murmured, "Is that the dog?" And then went quiet, as if acknowledging it might make whatever was outside hear us. The pressure lasted until the first rays of morning light. When it lifted, it did so slowly, like weight being removed one careful inch at a time. The puppy's body trembled once, a shiver running through it like exhaustion. Then it lay down again, facing outward. Morning revealed a ring around the house. The snow had melted in a perfect circle, wider than the yard, as if heat had radiated out from the foundation. The grass beneath was blackened. The edges of the circle were sharp, too clean to be natural. Nothing had crossed into it. No tracks, no disturbances. No marks on the porch, only the circle. Only the absence of everything else. The puppy was still at the door. It looked smaller in the daylight somehow, though it wasn't. Its eyes were duller, and when it blinked slowly like something was causing it pain. The card from the first day lay near its paws. It had been chewed around the edges, softened by teeth. Only one line remained intact. "You'll need him." Someone reached down and tried to pick up the card. The puppy didn't stalk them, it didn't growl. But the moment the card lifted, the puppy's head snapped up and its gaze pinned the door again, as if the message wasn't for us anymore, as if it was time. That night, we stayed downstairs. No one suggested separating into rooms. We watched the tree lights blink. We watched the puppy watching the door. Outside, the quiet returned to normal just before midnight. A car passed in the distance. A dog barked 3 houses down. Wayne touched the branches and made them tick against the window. It was almost comforting, almost. The puppy stood up. Its body looked heavier again. The smoke from its fur was stronger now, curling upward in thin streams. Its paws left faint dark prints on the wood. It lowered its head toward the seam beneath the door and went still. Something arrived, not with sound, with presence. The air thickened, the room felt smaller. The tree lights flickered, and for a moment, every shadow in the house seemed to lean toward the door. The puppy's growl deepened. It wasn't loud. It was absolute. It held the line. For a long time, nothing happened. And then the pressure shifted not away, but sideways like something reconsidering how to get in. The shadows settled back into place. The puppy stayed braced. Then, slowly, the room released a breath. The pressure lifted. The puppy swayed once and fell down hard, as if its legs no longer wanted to cooperate. It looked back over its shoulder. Not at us, at the tree. At the empty space beneath it where the box had been. As if confirming the gift had been delivered. As if confirming the agreement had been met. Then it turned back to the door and lay down, facing outward. When morning came, the puppy was gone. No scratches, no marks of escape, no open doors, no broken windows. Just an oval of ash pressed into the floor where it had slept, still warm at the center. The scorch marks on the doorframe were darker now. The paint around the edges had blistered. The metal knob was cold again. Outside, the snowbound circle was untouched. Inside the circle, the blackened grass looked dead, but in a way that felt purposeful, like something had been burned away to leave a boundary. The world had sound again. Birds chirped. Neighbors' cars started. Someone's radio played faintly through a wall. Christmas looked normal if you didn't know what to look for. We cleaned the house because cleaning was what you did when you couldn't do anything else. We swept up ash that refused to cling to the broom. We wiped the floor until our hands ached. We unplugged the tree at last. Beneath it, the torn wrapping paper from the first day sat in a neat pile, as if no one had dared to move it. It felt wrong to touch. The card was gone. Or maybe it was still there in a way that mattered more. That afternoon, someone noticed faint marks etched into the floorboards where the ash had been, not words, not symbols. A line, a boundary pressed into the wood as if by heat and pressure and purpose. Whatever came to the house had not crossed that line. Not this year. That should have been comforting. It wasn't, because a gift like that wasn't sent for no reason. We tried to make sense of it the way people always do. We told ourselves the dog had been sick, maybe, and wandered off. That the ring was from something electrical. That the pressure was weather. Those explanations didn't hold. But they were easy to repeat. In the following days, the house behaved normally. Heat came from the vents. Doors opened the way doors always did. Outside, the street returned to its usual noise. But the front door felt different. Not dangerous. Watched. People stopped standing in front of it for too long. They avoided resting their hands on the knob. They checked the lock more often than necessary, and always with quiet movements, as if loud movements might invite attention. At night, we kept a lamp on in the hallway, and a small bed waiting for the puppy, not because we believed the light would protect us, because darkness felt like permission. New Year's arrived and the world asked us to move on. Work resumed, school resumed. Life demanded ordinary things. We did those things. And still sometimes someone would pause in the hallway and listen. Not for a knock, for the absence of one. Because the scariest part wasn't what happened when the puppy was there. It was what the puppy had implied. That something had been on its way. That something had arrived. That something had been persuaded only temporarily to wait. We never spoke about the puppy outside the house. It felt like speaking might mark us, might invite curiosity, might create a path back. Inside the house, we didn't speak about it either, not directly. We spoke around it. We replaced the rug near the door, but no one ever chose a dark color again. We painted over the blistered frame, but the paint never quite matched. We polished the knob until it shone. In late November of the next year, we brought down the decorations. We didn't mention the tree until the last box. When we finally pulled it from storage, someone hesitated with the lights in their hands. We stood too long in the living room, staring at the space where the tree would go. The air felt normal, warm, still. Nothing pressed against the walls, nothing listened. And yet no one suggested skipping Christmas. Skipping Christmas felt like inviting something worse, as if tradition itself was a thin protection. As if the holiday was a line people drew every year, whether it helped or not. So we put up the tree, we hung ornaments, we wrapped gifts. We left one space beneath the branches empty without discussing it. On Christmas Eve, the house was locked early. The lights stayed on. No one read poems about visitors. No one made jokes about surprises. The front door remained closed. And all night we listened to the quiet, not for footsteps, not for bells, for pressure, for the moment the air would change, for proof that the puppy had not been the threat, only the warning, only the time purchased, only the reason we were still here to put up the tree again. Christmas morning came. The space under the tree was still empty. And for the first time all year, we felt relief that tasted like fear, because nothing had arrived yet, and that was never the same thing as safety. It only meant one thing: the line was still holding. For now.